'Twas late evening before Christmas, and all through the night, Miss Miss was awake and sitting alone in just the moonlight. She stared at a picture of her class and thought of each one, because she would not see them again until Christmas vacation was done. She thought of each face on the 21st of December, and although she did her best, it had not been a day to remember. The students were preoccupied with what was to come when the bell would ring and the school day was done. Carlo was frightened to go home to his neighborhood because the eviction sign was up again, maybe this time for good. 17 days with no lunch or snacks for Miss Miss, he thought with a sigh, and he slouched in his chair as the hours raced by. Sarah laid her head on her desk in a puddle of tears. Since the death of her aunt, she'd had to face so many fears. With nowhere to go, she had to leave the only place she'd known, as she was moved across the state to be placed in a group home. Evan raised his hand every single hour, saying he had a stomach ache, and one look from Miss Miss ensured no one accused him of being fake. She had called CPS and tried to get help with no results yet, but the screaming and fighting described in Evan's journal was hard to forget. Celine sat up very straight, wringing her hands furiously in her seat. She strove to always be perfect, silent, and meticulously neat. Her file described her anxiety, medicines, and all the strategies tried, but each day she sat silent, even when Miss Miss was right by her side. Darren was perhaps the child that worried Miss Miss the most out of all. Before break, he flipped a chair and wrote angrily on her wall. He was brilliant and special, but so angry too. Despite all her love, she felt she was not getting through. Each day he made choices that did not show the young man he could become, and when Miss Miss tried to help, he would say, "I hate you, you are dumb." Before they left to go home, Miss Miss took each one alone and gave them an envelope for them to take home. In each was a letter describing why she loved them as a gift for Christmas, and each one was signed with "I love you, Miss Miss." As Miss Miss sat at home and thought of each child she held dear, each held their note, a little piece of her near. Carlo read his while he opened a treat from Miss Miss, his big math game prize, his Christmas dinner, a bag of Takis, the biggest giant size. With his stomach and heart full, at least for that Christmas night, he knew that he was loved and smiled into the moonlight. Sarah opened her letter in her new bunk bed. She cried and smiled while she sat and read. She thought of Miss Miss and her sweet loving tone and realized that maybe she was not all alone. Evan's letter had been slipped into a special book, and when the yelling began, he hid under his blanket to look. He read the letter and his book that Miss Miss let him borrow for the vacation days, and escaped in his mind reading about jungle cats and their prey. Selena woke in a start in a panic attack, but remembered that she had left something in her backpack. She read her letter and began to count each number and breathe, and couldn't wait to tell Miss Miss she made the panic attack leave. Darren sat outside considering whether or not to go with his friend. They had a plan that was likely to have a terrible end. In his jeans pocket, he felt the corner of the note, turned to the others and said, "Hey, you guys, I'm not coming. Go on ahead." He planned to read the note and catch up with the crew, but the words made him pause and think about what to do. With a smile, he turned and walked away as the clock turned to Christmas. He whispered, "Here's your present. I'm making those good choices, Miss Miss." Miss Miss got up to pace and knocked her bag over on the floor. She saw some slips of paper and reached over and saw quite a few more. Before each student had left to go home for the Christmas break, they each snuck her a note. And at the end, before their name, it was "I love you, Miss Miss," that they wrote. As Miss Miss held the notes tight in her hand as she went to bed, she realized that perhaps she could replace her worry with joy instead. Her heart was with them, and she knew that they knew this. And as each one fell asleep, they whispered, "Merry Christmas, Miss Miss."